Hi, this is Sam Lagana with the Los Angeles Rams. Whose house? You're listening to the Los Angeles Rams UK podcast. Undenied worldwide. The Los Angeles Rams. It doesn't get any better than this. Let's go Rams!
Good evening and welcome to another edition of the LA Rams UK podcast, episode 113, Mocking Away. I'm John and joined by me this evening is Andy and Lewis. How you doing, guys?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Yourself?
All right. I'm all right. How are you, Lewis?
All good, thank you. All good.
Cool. So obviously it's been a while since we've podcasted, and I feel like I need to come back and do another episode about what's actually happened since we last podded. But there's more important issues to deal with, and that is the 2025 draft, which kicks off tomorrow evening. So the purpose of this episode of the podcast is for us guys to sit and do a mock run through the draft to see who we think we could pick if we were, in the fire station with Snead and McVeigh. So the 2025 draft, guys. Lewis, I'll come at you in a second. Andy, how have you been getting on in terms of looking at any prospects, and is there anyone that before we go into this you would be looking for the Rams to be picking in the draft?
Yeah, I've had a nosy through a few players when I've had the time here and there, but there's a couple that I'm thinking. It's more positions of need. I think I'm looking at of where we need to improve the team, where we can hopefully get
So
one.
where do you think the positional need is then?
Cornerback / safety, ideally linebacker, but we know the Rams don't like to draft linebackers early. And maybe another wide receiver to sort of just fill out the room a little bit more, and maybe a developmental QB later on if we can pick one up.
Okay, cool. Lewis, obviously, for anyone that's unaware, Lewis has been doing some articles for us the last kind of month or so about the draft, so it's been great reads for us. But we'll just quickly, Lewis, tell us about where you think the positional needs would be, and is there anyone that you would like to see us draft this year?
There's a couple of players that I'd absolutely run to the podium for. I think Colston Loveland would just take the offense to another level. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I think Jade Barron, the cornerback, I think he's a physical guy who can play in that slot position and just completely nullify any tight end or running back at the backfield. I think he'd be brilliant for us. In terms of positional needs, like Andy said, I think corner is probably the one to go to. I'm not sure if you guys saw the interview with McVeigh and Snead, but they sort of hinted about talking to the Dolphins about Jalen Ramsey again. So we never know how confident they are about landing that, and they might just completely leave corner alone if they're confident in that. But I still think we need at least one at some point in the draft, to be quite honest.
Yeah,
exactly.
For me, when I was going through just doing a mock draft myself yesterday, just to make sure the tool was working fine, cornerback is where I wanted to draft first, but the person who I wanted to draft wasn't available, so I actually then went to the offensive line, which when Andy had seen that, he'd said, I'm surprised you've went there. And my kind of feeling was we're really prone to injuries in the offensive line. So if there's any way that we could get a good prospect to kind of really strengthen there, you've seen the way the run game has went in the last couple of years with us improving the offensive line. So it's more trying to build on that because after last season, we seem to be heading in the right direction with where the defense is going. And with some obviously changes being made offensively in the off-season, any chance I think to strengthen that is where I would take. But like I said, and like you guys said, cornerback would be the position I'd be looking to draft in the first round. But as you pointed out, Lewis, if there's going to be a chance that Jalen Ramsey coming in, perhaps Snead McVeigh may just omit cornerback from the draft list. Would you guys be happy with Jalen Ramsey coming back?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I don't think he's the same player he was a few years ago. I think you could see even last season he'd lost a step. But I think slotting him back into that sort of star role that we used him a lot of the time would, really do the defense well. But I think even if we did bring Ramsey back, I think the Rams still potentially really do need to look at corner, because Witherspoon's probably, if he comes back 1 year deal, he's 30. Darius Williams is 30. I think he's only got 1 year left on his deal. And then you're looking again at the likes of Kendricks and what have you, who just don't fill me with confidence. So I think being able to get a top quality, even if he was to sit behind someone like Ramsey for a year or two, just to learn, would do the team well.
Okay. Just moving on to the picks that we've got going into this draft. So we've got 8 as it stands. We're obviously picking 26 overall in the first round, then 90th and 101st in the third round, 127th in the fourth, and then 190, 195, 201st, 202nd in the sixth, respectively. Do you guys see us picking at 26, or do you see us moving up or down? Lewis, will come to you first.
I don't see us picking at 26, to be quite honest. I mean, personally, I would be looking at trading back, trying to get into the mid to late 30s, and then picking up an extra third rounder, and then possibly even packaging 2 of your third rounders to get back up into the second for another good player. There's a lot of rumours about already trading up for a tight end or a guy that McVay really likes. I don't see that happening. I think if we are going to trade, I think it will be back. And Peter Schrager released his mock draft today, and he had us moving back from the Giants, who I think are pick 34. They moved up to select Jackson Dart in the first round, and Schrager's quite locked in with McVay and Snead. So I think if there's anything to go on, I think that's probably it.
Well, how about you, Andy? Do you see us picking at 26, or do you see us going up or down?
Like Lewis said, I could see likely us potentially going down for a second rounder. But then, as he said, I saw the rumours today as well. McVay has been trying to get his tight end of choice for the past couple of years and hasn't managed it. So potentially we could maybe move up as well if he really likes somebody. But I think with us not having that second round this year, it would probably mean giving away our first round next year. I'm not sure if the team would be willing to do that for for one player like that.
Yeah, because they obviously made calls last year about getting Bowers, and obviously it didn't happen. So yeah, tight end is a position in offense like that they're obviously looking at. So Loveland is obviously the guy that's getting batted about, isn't it? So
yeah, I could see us rather than drafting a tight end though. I've seen rumours apparently we're interested in getting Kyle Pitts off the Falcons, which could be a good pickup, maybe a third round pick to get him. I've seen a couple of rumours of that floating around today, so that might be something interesting to watch out for as well, because I think he hasn't worked well in the Falcons, but I think under a McVay offense he'd work very well in almost that Cooper Kupp style role.
Yeah, it could be an interesting
move. Just on that as well, Dallas Goedert of the Eagles and Michael Mayer of the Raiders, they've also been made available for trade as tight ends as well.
I wouldn't mind Goddard.
He's a little bit older and a bit injury prone, but he's still a very good player.
Yeah, he's very, very much a Higbee, I think. Older player, injury prone. You're not going to guarantee the full season, but Mayer could be one that actually interests me because apparently McVay was interested in him a few years ago when he came out in the draft. So he could be an interesting player for him to pick up as well.
Interesting. I could see us moving down with us being 26 in the first round. I think they would definitely be field calls from the likes of like you touched upon, guys. They'd want the Giants, for example, for them to trade up to get, because if you've got but they'll pick what second or third in the second round. So really, it's only like 7 places you'd move down, maybe 7 or 8 places. So you think about was that a couple of years ago? Avia came from the second round in that high pick, and you can still pick up a really good talent and high. Picking early in the second round. So I'd be surprised if we go up because, like you guys are saying, we don't have a second rounder. So I think we've proved the last few years having that first round pick, does us some good. So hopefully we're not going to trade away next year's first rounder to get something. But if we were going to do that, then I think, like I said, the name that's getting bandied about is, Loveland, and I think that's who they're kind of got their eyes on, trading up for if he slips. But time will tell, I guess, what's happening with that. So with that, let's move on to actually performer draft. And bear with me if I remember how to do this right now. Where's the function? Layout. Technology is a wonderful thing if it works. Present. There we go. Share screen. And that's the one I want. There we go. Right, okay. Right, so before we get into the draft, this is our draft board, folks, if you're watching along. So the highlighted guys you can see on the list here are people who the Rams have met with in the run-up. There's a few of them, like Sir Jalen Milroe and Isaiah Bond, Shamar Turner, who they've met with more than once. You can see Loveland is highlighted there. Kelvin Banks is another high one that they've been looking at. And everyone else that's on the list is guys that we've taken from Lewis's articles that he's recommended as potential prospects for the Rams. And then underneath it, when I was running my test, this is who I ended up taking. I actually, as you can see, I went to the fourth round before I went to tight end. And like I said, I'd went offensive guard first, thinking that I wanted to kind of strengthen that line. And then I went edge to strengthen the other side. And then I'm actually looking back, I'm quite surprised I went linebacker, but I think I just went best available. So, right, with that, let's kick it off. So 7 rounds. We are agreeing, guys, that we're not going to take any trade offers. We'll just pick what we've got.
Yeah, I don't mind whichever way you want to do it.
I think this is one of these tools that it gives you ridiculous trade offers. I think a couple of years ago when I tried this tool, I ended up with like about 30 picks somehow.
Oh, okay. If only.
If only, yep. I mean, have we got the cap space for 30 picks?
Yeah, we'd make room.
Right, so Loveland's away. Starks is a player I was looking for.
That's one, yeah. Barron and Starks were the two.
Oh, hold on. Why is that picking automatically for us? Right, no.
Oops.
Sneed's already put the pick in.
Yeah.
Not false start here, folks. Why is that doing that? Select your team slowly.
You just need to make sure you select the Rams on the left. That's all.
Ah, of course. Getting ahead of myself.
And you might want to put it on fast as well if you can.
Okay, it's going fast enough.
Yeah, that's all good.
Right, we'll try this again then. Where do you think Sanders is going to go? Because he's getting bounded about as if he's the next Caleb Williams.
I'd be very surprised if he goes past 21 for the Steelers. I think he's bound to go there at this point.
Okay,
I
right.
The Steelers will depend on, obviously, there's the whole Aaron Rodgers drama. Will he, won't he, blah, blah, blah. I think if he does sign with the Steelers, then obviously I think that rules him out. And I could see him actually potentially slipping to 32 and a team trading with the Eagles just to get that last pick for the 5th round.
Okay. Right, we are up, guys. Okay. Where let's all floors open. Where do you think we want to pick first?
To be honest, the board hasn't felt great in my opinion. If I was going to pick a few out of there, I mean, Walter Nolan and Pierce are two brilliant players. They've just got a few personality concerns. That's kind of why they're dropping down a little bit.
Yeah.
After that,
I think
Trey Amos is one.
Yeah, Trey Amos, Daniel Jeremiah had him going to us.
The one thing I've picked up in this draft is a lot of players that I can't pronounce their name. Number 33 there, Donovan, whatever his name is.
Ezeraku.
There we go. That's it. I think both of those guys. Yep. Right. So he was one of the prospects out there, and so was Trey Amos. So we had them as potential first round prospects on our draft board.
Personally, if it was me, I'd probably say Amos.
Well, I think we were all kind of in agreement before we came into this that cornerback would be probably where we would look to draft first. So, are you guys happy that we'd go with Amos as
Yeah,
our first?
I think he fits our system quite well. He likes to drop back in zone and use his eyes to kind of burst on any plays. And he can also come up and make plays in the run game as well, a bit like Jalen Ramsey. He's just a bit more slender than Ramsey.
Well, if we could draft him and then we bring Ramsey in, perhaps that could be a kind of player that sits behind Ramsey to develop if
learns
he's a
from him,
similar
yeah.
kind of player. So, okay.
Yeah.
Hold on. We want to draft him, so pick is in, and we are taking Trey Amos as our first rounder. Okay. And it's a bit of a wait, as I found out when I was doing this yesterday. Right, so let's spitball. Where would we think to look for our next position? Would we go in the offense or the defense again?
I would personally be looking at either tight end or wide receiver at this point. I think, same, we've got 2 picks, 90 and 101. I think you want to try and get at least one offensive weapon to try and help out with a little bit of depth.
Yeah, I agree with that, to be honest.
Okay.
There's quite a few guys around this point at the edge position as well that are quite good. They're just quite a lot of them seem to be quite raw in as a prospect, whether they're just don't have the pass rush moves or can't set the edge. That's their main problem, but they do have the potential to be great players.
Right. Okay. So, in terms of wide receivers, there, Tez Johnson and Torrey Horton are 2 guys that the team have met with. There, let's see, tight end. Gunnar Helm and Thomas Fedone are guys. But the projections I've seen was that Fedone would be more of a 57th round pick, whereas Helm would be a 3rd round pick.
To be honest, those wide receiver options look really good to me at this point.
Okay.
Carl Williams, I wouldn't have expected to be still around at this point.
Yeah, that's the one.
He was at the Senior Bowl and everyone was raving about his releases and how quickly he got off the line and beat defenders straight away. But then I've got a bit of a soft spot for Torrey Horton as well. 6'3", he's a bit slender, but he's really versatile. Can line up in the slot or outside. Has great routes and also has great speed as well. So he can kind of do it all. But to be honest, at this position, it's kind of hard to pass up on Carl Williams. He can win straight off the line and doesn't even really have to do much more than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm happy to go with that.
He's
You're
very
the
much
expert
reminds me
here.
of a bigger Tutu Atwell, to be honest.
Okay. Right, we're back up now. We've picked 101.
Let's have a look at the tackles
tackles
for a minute. No, unfortunately, the guy I was thinking of is gone.
See if any other guys are still there. So tackles, Belton and Grant. The only ones, Anthony Belton, who the team have met with, is still there.
Could be potential just to sit behind Have, because I think Havenstein, isn't he on the last year of his contract this year? So potentially.
Have we got any edges or defensive tackles available? Just see if there's anyone really popping out. Not massively, to be honest.
Shamar Turner.
Shamar Turner is someone.
Turner would be good, yeah.
Met with him twice.
Yeah, he was one actually that I was very much sort of quite like.
Like I said, guys, I'm in your hands. You guys have looked at this a bit more than I have, so I'm just the man putting the picks in.
Shamar Turner's got great punch off the line. That's his kind of main
Uh-huh.
thing. He kind of wins straight away, so has great power. The only thing with Turner, his only downside is that he was flagged a few times in college. That was his only really real downside. But he's got a great motor, which is kind of what the Rams look for on the defensive line over the past couple of years. So to kind of sit with Fisk, Poona Ford, and then you've got the edge guys alongside with him as well. I think he'd be a great addition, to be honest.
Yeah, he very
Okay.
much reminds me of Kobe Turner, to be brutally honest. He does remind me, and it's
if
part of
he's
the
that kind of
rotation.
player, yeah. If
Yeah.
he's that kind of player, I mean, who wouldn't want another Kobe Turner out there?
And
I
to be
think
honest,
for the
again,
fact that
he's one of them. I'm surprised he's still here at this point.
yeah, well, I think for the fact, based on what you guys are saying, and the fact that the team have met with him twice, I think it's a no-brainer to take Turner. Then,
Yeah.
Okay, so we are next up at 127.
I'm thinking at this point maybe.
I'd be interested to see what linebackers have fallen at this point.
Yeah. This is where I'm thinking maybe linebacker or QB potentially. There's a decent prospect still around. Stutzman stands out to me straight away.
I like both of them top two.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we've met with Stutzman as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Nope.
No,
That's
never mind.
Carton Barron. Any other positions you want to look at?
Check on quarterbacks.
Because we're on the fourth round. This is where we like to try and pick up quarterbacks. But none of those guys there in the list are anybody we've met with.
I have seen quite a few people though in sort of this area. Cal McCord seems to be a popular name that keeps popping up for us. But I'm wondering if maybe we could get him in the next round.
Yeah, he's in the difficult spot because we've got another big gap between 127 and then 190. So he'd normally go about 160-ish. But he's kind of more of a pocket passer sort of guy who has brilliant accuracy and touch on his passes rather than the new age kind of guys who run around like Jalen Milroe. So he kind of fit the McVay system a little bit more. But it's just whether you're willing to reach on him a little bit at this point. I mean, I guess you could kind of trade back in real life, but if we're not doing trades here, then you could kind of get the value.
I mean, probably realistically speaking, they probably would be trading back for this pick to get something kind of like high fifth round or whatever. But like the other thing to consider is you get Stafford, Garoppolo, and Bennett's still there. So are they realistically going to draft another quarterback? I know we're meeting with ones, but is it a case of like they're going to then put this person up against Bennett and it's duke it out to be number 3?
That is what I've seen a lot of them saying, is that it's going to be basically a competition between the two. And I have a feeling from what I've seen, like rumours online and what have you, that McVay and Co aren't actually keen on Bennett and kind of want to get rid at this point. Yeah. He's not developed like they want.
No. But just going back there, you guys, you talk about Stutzman.
Yeah, he's one that pops off at me, to be honest. He feels we seem to have our run defending linebacker. We need sort of more of a coverage style, and he sort of fits that mold, I feel, of a coverage linebacker.
Yeah, his main use is kind of his instincts. He kind of sees a play and is just on it straight away. So if it's a run or a route by any tight end, he's kind of agile enough to kind of get there to the point of attack. And even though he's not the quickest, he kind of makes up for that with his quick processing. That's kind of his pro compared to other linebackers.
Yeah, and again, at this point, you're kind of looking more developmental as well, where we've got Spates, we've just brought in Landman. He's another player who could maybe sit for a year or two and sort of develop, because a lot of linebackers seem to take 2, 3, sometimes even 4 years to fully develop.
Mm-hmm.
So
don't forget we've got Troy Reader as well.
Oh no!
Thanks.
I was
I'm gonna
hoping
have
you
to go
weren't
back
going to
to.
mention him.
Thanks.
Like
I'm
I
gonna have
thought
to go
that was
back to
just a
therapy
dream.
now for that. I forgot about that one. Therapy's
Right, we're taking
calling.
Stutzman. We're taking Stutzman. If it gives us any chance of ever getting rid of Troy Reader, we're taking Stutzman.
Mm.
Do you know when I seen that appear on like X, I was like, please tell me this is a dream. This isn't actually happening.
No, I couldn't believe
I'll
it
never
myself.
forgive him for that. That 49ers regular season game when he tried to tackle someone and got dragged 10 yards.
Mhm.
Says after that, like, nah, I don't care what kind of game he has. Like, he's just not a linebacker for me. But hey ho. Right, so 4 picks to go, all in the 6th round. 190, 195, 201, and 202. So all quick succession picks. Where are we thinking to look or hoping to look?
I think maybe a home run hitting running back could be added to that room, and then help on the offensive line as well. I think that's kind of the main thing, and then maybe a little bit more depth at safety if possible as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking like you said, tackle maybe.
Okay, let's have a look on the tackle front. Sorry, I'll go back to the draft board. See, so at this point, Slater and Simpkins are third were the only people that we've met with, but they're probably away. Let's see. Simpkins are third there, it's the centre we've met with.
I quite like Jack Nelson, the tackle, to be honest. He's not great in pass protection, but he's got the ability to be able to. So I think with a bit of coaching, he could get there. He's got great burst and range for a tackle, and he's got great hand placements. So he's great in the run game when he can get out into open space and things like that. So he has got the ability to be a starting tackle. He's just his pass protection needs a little bit of work. Just his shuffling back and he can kind of get cross-footed a little bit and stuck in a rut.
Okay. Anyone for you, Andy?
Jack Nelson's one, obviously. Wisconsin linemen are pretty well known for coming out, and being fairly decent guys. And again, he's another one who could sit behind Havenstein, just learn the position and clean a few bits up that he needs to clean up. So he is one that jumps off. Unfortunately, the two I was thinking of, I think have gone, which is Cameron Williams and Miles Hinton. Unless they're further down the board, like the list.
Sorry, Hinton. Oh, there's Miles Hinton there.
Yeah.
Way down the list. What was the other name, sorry?
Cameron Williams.
Nope.
No, he's gone.
Well, we've got another pick in 5. I would say Nelson's probably a good shout then here.
Yeah,
because we're picking in 5. And the pick is running back, receiver, tackle, and defensive tackle. So,
damn it, I was hoping Nick Nash would last because he was the one I was going to say actually.
Okay, so we are at that point where we usually get the token back pick or wide receiver pick.
There's some good running back options actually. I think, unless I'm wrong again, I think we met with Jarquez Hunter and Jaden Blue. I'm not sure why he's this far down on this one,
nope.
but Jaden Blue will go a lot earlier than this. But he's a brilliant player. He is probably the quickest running back in the whole class. He can pretty much catch any ball out the backfield, run any route, and just take it to the end zone pretty much on any touch. So obviously, if he was here, I think I'd be absolutely sprinting to the podium for him. But I think in real life terms, I think he'll be a 3rd or 4th rounder.
I wonder if he's one of them where his size is putting people off because he's only like 190 or something, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he'll be a sort of, obviously, I hate comparing to Jahmyr Gibbs, but that sort of guy who can come in and just make a few splash plays rather than be that proper running back one. he can just come in for like passing plays and just occasional runs on the outside and things like that.
He could be a complementary piece to Williams, because that's one thing we do lack, is we don't have that speed guy.
Yeah.
At running back. Both of ours, all of ours are just plodders. Coram and Williams are sort of not going to beat you with speed.
Mm-hmm.
So having that flip, to be honest, does sound like a pretty good idea.
Okay, I'm happy to go with that then. Let's go take him. There was enough there off his blurb about it was for me that on his wee blurb there about third down, and usually third down runs were quite prone to losing yards. So
he's quite good in as in passing game out the backfield as well. He can run some decent routes and get himself lost a little bit.
Yep. Okay. So final two picks here, back to back. First of all, what positions do we want to be looking at here? In real life, they will take a wide receiver, because they always take a wide receiver in the draft. But we've not looked at even safeties yet as well. But in fact, if I just go back and just see also, can see who's available across the board.
I've got a soft spot for Jeffrey Basser. I mean, we've already taken a linebacker, so we probably wouldn't take him here. But I think Jeffrey Basser at that point, I think he's great value. He's another guy who is brilliant in coverage. He's just uber athletic and just covers basically the whole field. He can go sideline to sideline, and I think he'd be a brilliant complement to Spites. But obviously, we've already got Stutzman, so I don't think we'd go there at this point.
No, but he would be, like you said, potential. Because don't forget, normally at this point as well, you're looking at contributions on special teams, and he seems to be one of them that could maybe, give you that on special teams.
Can we have a look at tight ends quickly, see if we can add any depth there at all? Who we got there? Just Mitchell Evans, really. I mean, Evans' value there isn't too bad, to be fair. He's kind of a guy that we look for. He's kind of good at everything, but not elite in a way. He's got good hands. He's got good zone IQ, and good in the red zone. And he's decent at blocking. He's just not got that really good speed that you look for in a top receiving tight end. And his routes aren't particularly clean at the top, so he's not really polished as a tight end. But that's kind of what you're going to get at this point in the draft. I think he's good to have as depth as maybe a tight end 2 or 3. So I wouldn't be against taking him here, but I don't think he's ever going to have the potential to kind of be your star tight end that can take over from Higbee.
And if there's a possibility that they are looking at the likes of like Pitts and Mayer or Goddard, it could be a position that if they can't get who they really want out of the draft, they'll just be like, well, we'll not bother with tight ends. So like I kind of feel the same, that I think it would be not necessarily a waste of a pick, but it'd be like, should we really be picking somewhere else? Is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, the only thing with tight end is we've only got 3 on our roster at the minute. It's Higbee, Parkinson, and Davis Allen. So maybe just a bit of depth added to it. That's the only thing I'd say at this point in the draft. But yeah, like you say, there's plenty of other positions that we kind of need depth into.
Yeah, no, I agree. It sounds daft, but what quarterbacks are available still?
I mean, nothing really grabs me, but that is
I
the
think
201st pick.
Ugalele, well, however you pronounce his name, DJU, just for the
this guy.
Yeah, but
it almost looks like you would say ukulele. Ukulele.
But I think that's why he just grabs you because of the name. I think he was one of them a few years ago when he came into college. He was expecting to be a big star, and it's just flopped off the edge of the chart. There's nobody that's sort of slipped that I'd be happy to take.
Yep. It's a tough one because we're looking at two people here because we're picking back to back.
I've got a wide receiver that I really like, and it's a bit of another soft spot of mine because he's from Eastern Washington, and that's where Cooper Kupp was from. He's called Efton Chisholm. It's spelled Chism.
Is it?
He's basically a smaller Cooper Kupp that plays in the slot. He's really physical, works really hard, runs nice routes. Let me just get his notes up here. Yeah, really tough, has good footballing IQ, has great hands, and has that run after the catch ability. He's just small. He's 5'10" and 195 pounds, and he hasn't got that top speed. So it kind of does just sound like a smaller Cooper Kupp. That toughness and ability to kind of get those yards after the catch, not just with speed, but kind of run through players and that avoidability and things like that.
Yeah, he's definitely a potential then, by the sounds of it. He kind of sounds like a McFace sort of wide receiver, to be honest.
I'm happy to go with him if you want, guys. Like, we're picking back to back, so we're picking someone else. And,
yeah, go on, we'll go
within this round, we are guaranteed we will probably take a wide receiver. Right, so back on the board again for our final pick, number 202.
I think with this one, we'd either have to go depth at tight end or safety. We haven't had a safety yet, have we?
No, we have not. So here we go. So
we do like safeties at this point, especially with the special teams help and things like that.
God, these guys are all definitely all gone. Let's see. Anyone jumping out?
No. Apart from
not massively, no.
No, not a couple of top safeties. It's not really.
Okay, we'll go back to the tight ends then.
If we had to choose a safety, it would be Sebastian Castro. But I do think he'd be gone earlier than this. He's a more physical guy who can come down in the box and help with a run game, though, rather than a deep safety that can use his range and speed. So if we're kind of looking at a guy that wants to come down and play sort of as a linebacker safety, that sort of guy, then he would be a good option. But we're kind of missing the depth behind like Kinchens as like free safeties, especially as we use Quentin Lake as that guy in the star role. Unless, as we mentioned earlier, if we get Jalen Ramsey back and put him in the star role, and then we can move Lake back into that free safety role where he can kind of sit back and have the field in front of him, then that would be a better option.
Okay. So
just go back to safety a sec.
Yeah, sure.
Because I thought I saw a name at the bottom then. I've seen a few people talking about this Rayon Lane from Navy, which is like unusual for us. I've heard his name mentioned a few times as like in this sort of area, but I don't know much about him. I think I saw his name in one or two mock drafts at this sort of period.
I'm going to be honest. I don't have any notes on this guy.
No. I've just seen it like listed on one or two, but I go on, carry on looking around. I don't say.
Okay. Right. I mean,
have we got any edge players available at all, just for a bit of extra depth? Now we've lost Michael Hoyt as well. Oh, okay. I mean, I quite like Baron Sorrell. I think he'll go a bit earlier than that, to be honest. As an edge player, he's kind of he uses power really well, gets his hands inside the offensive lineman, but then also has good bend at the top of his pass rushes as well. And like I said before, he has a great motor, which is what the Rams have kind of looked for with their defensive linemen over the past few years. He's kind of just missing that finesse to his game and that speed and those refined pass rush moves. So he has the kind of sentiment and the power and motor and competitiveness that the Rams look for. So at this point in the draft, I wouldn't be against having him and kind of having that coaching behind him help kind of refine his skills and things like that. Have we drafted an edge so far? I can't remember. Or did we draft a defensive tackle?
Ooh, defensive tackle.
Okay. For me, this is between Mitchell Evans, the tight end, Sorrell at the edge, or Sebastian Castro, the safety. That'll be my three between those three for our last pick.
Is Elijah Williams still on an edge?
Let's see. Yep, he's there.
Yeah, he's another one I've seen. A sort of takes over that Michael Hoyt role as the bigger edge player because the Rams seem to like having a big edge.
Yeah, can use him in that sort of Swiss Army knife kind of role that can move him around and fill any
He's got the
gaps.
size to get inside and outside as well. He's kind of in that. And again, I've seen a couple of mock drafts actually him being picked here as well. Sort of 201, 202. I've seen a few of them picking him up because of he's kind of like I say that he'd be an ideal. A lot of them are saying he'd be an ideal replacement for Michael Hoyt.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in terms of the team needs here in Ibana, linebackers, cornerback, edge, tight end, and running back. Edge and tight end is where we've not covered. So, but we seem to be kind of drifting back to look at the edge. So perhaps this is where the pick would lie then, because and like going back to what I said, if the Rams aren't going to be able to pick a tight end in that first round, then. Because I think if we're going to pick a tight end, they're going to want to pick a guy who's going to be their starting tight end, because there's this possibility of picking up a more veteran player that can come in and fill it. And it's one of the ones that they might pick. They might we're getting to the tail end of the draft. They might pick a tight end up as an undrafted free agent and develop them that way.
Yeah, that's the thing. You just don't know. I do like the idea of Elijah Williams myself, though. I think
that's what I was coming to. I think we seem to be kind of drifting more towards it's an edge we want to take, even though we know we should try to take a tight end. So
well, I've got the depth chart up here, and it's saying our only outside linebackers are Byron Young, Jared Verse, and Brennan Jackson. So I think we do need that depth on the outside of the defensive line. So I think edge is probably the way to go here. And I think we leave it up to you to go Williams or Sorrell.
I think based on what Andy was saying, I think Williams seems like he would fit more into our system and it would have more versatility within that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he'd also, obviously special teams, again, we do need the depth of special teams, and at that sort of size, he'd be ideal for that as well.
Okay, right. Well, with that, we'll take, with our final pick in the draft, Elijah Williams. And that completes the draft for the Rams. So we'll just wait for this just to run out. I don't know if this is one of these tools. Lewis, you know better than me. Is this one of these tools that gives you a grading at the end?
I don't think it gives you the grade on this one. It will give you an overview of all the players you've picked.
Okay, we'll just let it run through.
I did see at the very start there. I'm not sure if you guys noticed that Colston Loveland went to the Niners at number 11.
Oh.
Imagine him and Kittle for the next couple of years. It wouldn't be very nice.
Oh God, no thanks. No thanks. I don't know why.
I mean, there's some reports on yeah. Sorry, just mentioned that he went one of the very last picks in the draft there. I just seen. Right, okay. So just if I go in for Cameron Ward was the first pick in the draft, followed by Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. Just of interest.
He's going to be an interesting one. Travis Hunter. Whoever drafts him, are they going to allow him to play double, or because he wants to play both? And he said, "I'm playing wide receiver and corner. If you're not going to let me do it, don't bother drafting me." So that's going to be interesting just to see what teams are going to do with him. To be honest,
Tyler Warren, who's another tight end that the Rams have been looking at, he went to the Colts in our draft. Malachi Starks, who I kind of, from what I've read, like the look of as a safety, and would be one of my picks
Yeah,
if I could
he'd
get
be
him.
my first. Yeah, he was sort of the one that I've circled on mine for that reason. I do like him, but I just have a feeling he's going to be gone before we get there. Same as Jaddy Barron, or however you pronounce it. He's another one. It's sort of a toss up between Barron and Starks for me, is who I'd love as our first pick.
Yeah. But right, just looking at our draft picks. So, pick 26, we went with Trey Amos, cornerback out of Ole Miss. Pick 90, Kyle Williams, wide receiver out of Washington State. 101, we went with Shamar Turner, defensive tackle out of Texas A&M. 127, Danny Stutzman, linebacker out of Oklahoma. 190, Jack Nelson, offensive tackle out of Wisconsin. 195, Jaden Blue, running back out of Texas. Turner first, Efton Kism, a wide receiver out of Eastern Washington. And lastly, turn on to Elijah Williams, edge at Morgan State. Happy with that, guys. With how the board fell. I know as we were going through it there. Lewis, you were vocal at the start, so the board's not filled really well for this year.
Yeah, I mean, I was gutted when I saw Egbuka go one place before us. I thought he was going to fall to us, and then I'd be running to the podium for him. I think he'd be the perfect complement to play inside, and let Adams and Puka kind of do what they do on the outside, and he can cause chaos on the inside. But yeah, he went one pick before us. But yeah, I think we are in that awkward position at the end of the first round. I listened to Daniel Jeremiah's podcast, Move the Sticks, and he basically is saying the picks between about 16 and 40, there's really not that much difference in quality of players. So I think a lot of teams are kind of looking to move back, but then obviously it's going to be really difficult to make deals because teams aren't going to be willing to come up for that quality of player. So I think the only teams that are going to look to come up are the ones looking for that quarterback at the top of at the end of the first or the top of the second round, the likes of Milrow, Tyler Shuck, or Jackson Dart. So yeah, I don't think there'll be too many trades going on, but yeah, I'm worried about how the draft's going to go for us, especially if it falls like this. I would be happy with Trey Amos, but looking at those guys that have fallen kind of behind, there's a lot of edge players that fall into that bracket, and that's not one of our biggest needs at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. I know a few I've seen a couple of drafts again, given us what's that wide receiver, Burden. But
Yes.
I really don't want him because I've seen a lot of stuff about his off field and the fact, he kind of, there's been reports he's lazy in training, he doesn't do it, and then he's got off field issues of other stuff. He just doesn't feel like a McVay sort of player. He won't block, he won't do various different bits. So he's one that I'm kind of. I know a lot of people have had us drafted him. I just don't see us if that is true of his character. I just don't see McVay taking that sort of player.
There's one thing about Luther Burden is that he had great QB play, not last year, the year before. That's kind of where he got his rise. And then last year, his QB play was absolutely awful. So he kind of got used in a lot of screens and short passes, and everyone's kind of assuming he's just this gadget player, where he's really not. He kind of just had to be that gadget player to help his quarterback out last year. So I think he's more versatile than people are saying, but I am with you. There are worries about his effort and his blocking, and it's pretty clear to see in some of his tape.
Yeah, like I said, there's off-field stuff as well with his mum and his girlfriend and stuff, which kind of, I think, his draft stock is falling. It's a lot of red flags on him at the moment. But I have to say, I have seen a lot of drafts mocking him to us, which I just don't see it.
In terms of the first round, we've got there on the screen as there. Let's just humor and say this is how the first round actually goes. Is there any picks on there that you're surprised that teams taken?
Number 5, Will Johnson. I'd be screaming at my TV for the Jags if he went at number 5. I think James Gladstone from the Rams is going over there, and I think he's going to want to make a big splash play with his first draft pick, especially top 5. I think that is essentially going to be Ashton Genty or Tyler Warren. I think Ashton Genty's probably the likely pick there, just to make that offense more explosive. But yeah, I mean, to take Will Johnson over Jade Barron and Malachi Starks, I think that's a very, very, very bold move.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised as well to see that they've got Jalen Walker going before Jihad Campbell. That one's a little bit surprising for me as well. I'd have had Campbell's my number one linebacker and Walker's my number two.
Yeah, the only thing with, I think Walker offers a bit more pass rush upside than Campbell. I think Campbell is a bit of more of an off-ball linebacker that can kind of go sideline to sideline, whereas Walker's more of a guy that can bulldoze your tackles, make pass rushes, and get sacks. Whereas Campbell's more of your inside linebacker blitzer kind of guy.
Yeah. Yeah, like I say, apart from that, nothing else really.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, even here they've got the Eagles taking another edge rusher, so at 32, that'll probably be the steal of the show as usual, because that's what they always seem to blooming well do. But, like I say, nothing else that really stands out. Like I say, I think the big one, I think for everybody at the moment is obviously Sanders at 21 to the Steelers. I think will, like I said at the beginning of the show, will very much, I think, depend on what happens over the next 24 hours with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Whether he's actually going to commit to them or whether he's just going to keep playing them like an idiot, and eventually they're going to just say, "Well, sorry, we're not waiting forever. Bye bye. We're just going to draft someone." Or potentially, I could see them maybe doing it and sitting in behind, but I don't think his daddy will let them sit in behind someone like Rodgers for a year. Daddy will want him playing straight away.
Yeah, definitely. Can't see him being kept to develop. Let's just say that. So yep, that's our mock draft, folks. Interesting to see how the actual draft goes. We'll obviously come back post draft to look at who the Rams actually take next week. But just whilst we're here, guys, there's a lot been happening with the Rams. As we've mentioned during the episode, Cup's gone, Adams has came in. Just let's touch upon it quickly. Given how he's been over the last 2 seasons and kind of struggling a bit more injuries, is Cup going to be as big a loss as he would have been 3 years ago?
I think if we hadn't got Adams, yes. But I think the fact we've gone and picked up Adams, is kind of going to negate that. And I hate to say this, potentially make the offense better.
Wow. Okay. Lewis, what's your thoughts?
I think the main impact that is going to be seen is kind of in the locker room. I think Cooper Kupp was as a guy that was loved by everyone in the Rams organization. I think everyone kind of rallied behind him, and not only was he a great teammate and captain and leader, he brought up the young guys so well. I mean, I don't think Puka would be half the player he was without Cooper Kupp behind him, kind of coaching him and giving him tips. So I think that is somewhere that we're kind of going to lose out. I don't particularly see Devontae Adams as a guy that has great leadership and will coach the young guys up. I could be completely wrong in that. But
no, I do agree with you on that one.
I do think we'll lose out in that aspect, but I think at this point in their careers, I think Devontae Adams is a better wide receiver.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've seen this before with Bobby Woods.
Acquisition anyway, wasn't it?
Yeah, we saw this with Bobby Woods. It was a case of you're getting too injured, you're not producing, but you've got a thing. The Rams aren't afraid to say, "Well, sorry, you got to go." And I think that's exactly what happened, unfortunately.
I've disappeared there for a moment. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I was just going to say, where have you gone?
Vanished, I've had enough. That's Sam
well, like I say, it's going to be an interesting season again. Hopefully Adams, Stafford can get on the same ball pretty quickly. And I know some people have said, "Oh, look at Adams. He's not been as productive." But you look at what the mess he's been at the Raiders and the Jets. They're not exactly two organisations that allow anybody to sort of shine. And I think he could have a massive breakout this year. And I'm not saying have a cup-esque triple crown season, but I still think he has that potential and that ability in him that he could be pretty close to it.
Yeah, yeah. Just as you're saying, guys, like the locker room impact is where I think, yeah, you're definitely right. We'll feel that the most on. It's more off the field. We'll feel the effects, as opposed to hopefully on it. But even with that change there, you guys feel like our offense is stronger?
Uh, yeah, I do actually feel now it is stronger. Not only that, Adams is a different type of wide receiver to Cup in a lot of aspects, which is going to open up McVay's playbook. You've now got Puka and Cup I felt very similar players with each other. Adams brings a completely different dimension to the offense now. I know it's been a bit controversial as well, but I think maybe Atwell getting more playing time as well is really going to allow McVay to open up the offense more and get a little bit creative and have teams stumped because he's not going to be running what he's run for the past couple of years. So I'm quite excited to see how this goes. To be honest, I think it could end up, a pretty even better offense than we had last year.
I think the other thing is that you can't double team Puka and Adams, can you?
No way whatsoever.
So it's like one of them's going to find a way through, and we know what both of them are capable of, I guess. So it's really a question of which one of the two of them is going to go off for us. Because like I said, you can't double team both of them.
Well, no, exactly. It's going to be interesting to see, like I say, which one. Again, I think it'll be very much a case of we may have 1 or 2 weeks where it'll be Nakua's going off, and then teams will go, "Oh, we better get him locked up," and then it'll allow Adams to go off. But again, I just have this feeling that I wouldn't write off Atwell having a sort of career season as well. Now he's going to potentially be getting a lot more time as well, because I think he's going to be very much forgotten about now.
Yeah.
I think teams are going to be looking at Higbee, Adams, Nakua, and Atwell's just got to, when he's been given a chance, he has done reasonably well. So I think being given more of a prominent thing is, going to allow him to play more.
So he's on? Is it 10 million he's on now?
Yeah, 1 year, 10.5 million, I think it was.
Yeah, which at the time when that was announced, I think we were all like, really? And then we actually, as other wide receivers that have similar kind of ability started getting other deals, we actually seen, well, hold on a second, well, that's the market rate then. That's the rate for a player that caliber, which probably took us all by surprise at the time, because like I said, it's definitely on Discord. A few guys were kind of like, really, we're going to pay him 10 million? But like you said, like Abel's one of those ones. I think it's only been the last couple of years where I started to actually show what obviously McVay and that saw in him when they drafted him. And like there is a very good possibility, like you're saying, Andy, that he really could fly under the radar here because everyone's going to be looking at Higbee, Adams, and Puka. That Abel could just come out of nowhere and explode. And you've seen that Stafford can find him deep.
Yeah,
he's got the speed to get deep for Stafford, so he's your deep man as well.
When he's had those limited chances to play, he's played very well. It's just he's never been given the opportunity as a full-time starter. It's always been bits here, bits there. Oh, Cup's out for a couple of weeks. Well, he's slotting into the team now for a couple of weeks, and he gets taken back out because this is his chance potentially now to, McVay does like to run a larger amount of free wide receiver sets, and I can see him potentially doing that again this year. And like I say, it'll open up the book again.
Yep.
But we've had a couple of low key, signings this off season. Puna Ford. Obviously, we needed that big body in the middle, sort of run stuffer, and he's going to fill that well, which I think was a good pickup for us. And surprisingly, we went for a linebacker, Nate Landman, who I just feel has the potential. He could be sort of that Zach Bourne, 1 year, and he'll come on leaps and bounds this year as a full-time starter for us, and hopefully we'll keep the likes of Troy Reader well and truly away from the field.
Oh, one can hope. One can hope. But I
The
mean,
only one that, Reader's just.
look, I mean, it's bad when you say like we're going to need someone. Maybe linebacker they need to actually put more focus in because Reader's down as along with Spates is starting. He's one in the depth chart, so
I just
we need
see
a couple of guys
Landman.
to push him down.
I see Landman potentially pushing him out. I think he's probably going to be a day one starter. I'd be very surprised if he wasn't. The only one I didn't really get, I don't know about you two, was the re-signing of Coleman Shelton on a 2-year deal.
Yeah,
Seemed a little bit
I was
confusing for me.
dubious about that, and I was gutted when I heard. I can't remember if it was McVeigh or Snead came out and said that they're planning to start him at centre rather than Bo Limmer. I thought Limmer, when he stepped in last year, was really, really solid, and
Yep.
I know he gets the blame for that final play in the Eagles game in the snow. But I mean, Dotson was right there next to him as well. Who could have helped him. And it was just a miscommunication at the end of the day, and I don't think that one play defined his whole season as a 6th-round rookie. I thought he was pretty impressive.
Exactly. How many offensive lineman rookies come in and play well in their first year? Very few and far between. Especially the centre position where you're not just blocking, you're also in charge of setting up blocking patterns, defense, and everything else. He's got to try and do that, communicate all that, and work with staff. So I do think it was a surprise. I'd have personally have preferred Limmer, and last year, I'm not being horrible, Shelton did not look the same player he did. Now, he may come back in for us and maybe our scheme fits him better, but he was very suspect for me for the Bears last year. Was highlighted as one of their biggest, weakest links on their line, which their line wasn't great. So the fact he was getting called out is kind of a bit worrying that maybe he's regressed a little bit. Like I say, he was just like a kind of, when it came through, I was like, you what? Really?
Well, I guess it's one of those ones like over the next few days, the way that the Rams roster is going to shape up for 2025 is well and truly going to be, put out there for all to see, and we'll be able to then kind of see where McVay needs to see this team going in terms of the talent they want to bring in. Like I said, folks will come back post draft to have a look at who we drafted and try and look a wee bit more in depth about who exactly these players are and what they potentially could do for the Rams. But for now, we'll leave it there, guys, because there's a whole summer and there's so much we can already talk about.
It is a controversial one for you. Rams trade up to 1 and take Cam Ward and trade Stafford. Would you be happy?
I'm going to go no.
No. I've said this a few times. I prefer the method of getting someone who's tried and tested that you're not having to develop it, or it could be a bust. I think after, well, not even Goff, go back to Bradford. In fact, Goff was different, I guess, but going back to Bradford.
Goff had a few good years, but just kind of
he hit his ceiling for us, and it was time to move on. Bradford was totally different, and I would rather never go after quarterbacks in the first round. I would rather take someone, if you're going to take someone like Rinick about maybe like the 3rd round or whatever, if you've got a 3rd round pick that you could sit and develop, and there's maybe a bit of talent there that he's slipped, and you're like, well, this is a steal getting this guy. That's different, but I prefer what we've done with Stafford is we've traded away to bring someone in to win he'd been beaten to a bloody pulp at times. So the guy knew what it took to grind out, and it only took 1 year for Stafford to get us that ring. I would rather be looking to bring someone in that's developed and can go, as opposed to someone that if it doesn't work this year, it's a bust. There's so many other better positions that we could and should be drafting. I mean, we'll put it this way. Look, I was thinking about this earlier on. 2 years ago, we were sitting talking about all season about this is who's going to get Caleb Williams? Who's going to get Caleb Williams? This generational talent is going to absolutely blow the NFL away. Not saying he's been terrible, but equally not saying he's been amazing. It's one of those ones that he was written up that he was going to come in and whatever team he ended up, he was going to just take absolute forward. Like he was this savior.
Yeah,
You get
I
this every
think
year.
I think it
You know.
depends a lot though on the coach, and you look at Trevor Lawrence was the one before Caleb Williams. He was
Yep.
generational, and then you got Urban Meyer as his head coach, which is enough to break anyone. I don't feel McVay is that sort of coach. You look at Goff in his first year under Fisher, who was complete garbage, and then McVay came in, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
Goff was, I'm not saying but Pro Bowl caliber player, which is what this team needs. So I think a lot of it sometimes does come down to what's behind the young QB, and I think the likes of McVay would be one that would be able, as we've seen with Goff, develop these guys.
Yeah. Just as you
unlike
mentioned
some
there,
teams.
like Lawrence is a quarterback. I did say a couple of years ago that I could. This was a couple of years ago when I said that I could see the Rams trading to bring in one of those ones that he's not doing too well at Jacksonville, but there's signs to show that he is capable of being a good quarterback if he's in the right team.
Yeah, I've seen a few things online over the last year or so saying about that as well. Of could Lawrence be the once Stafford hangs it up, but would he be someone the Rams would be interested to trade for, which could be an interesting situation. Would he? I think I think a lot of quarterbacks would thrive under McVay's offense because he does make it, I'm not going to say easy, but he does make sort of gives the quarterback an easier ride, an easier picture, and I think communicates it well. As we've seen, like I say, even with Goff, But like I say, we don't have to worry about quarterback just yet. They've obviously sorted out the issues with Stafford. It was getting a little bit worrying though. When it was all this Willie Woney, is he getting traded? Is he going to retire? After the season ended, I don't know about you two, but I was kind of like, oh God, here we go again. This is all going to go tits up, and he's going to go, and we're going to be left with Jimmy Garoppolo as our quarterback. But it seems obviously the team has now managed to sort it out. Luckily, at least we're good for at least one more year.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, I think we said at the start of last year about Stafford. Do you want to draft someone in to sit and develop behind him? But I think with that, you would want to be having a kind of mid first round pick at least, so you've got a chance at one of the better quarterbacks that are available, I guess. If you take Green Bay as an example, they've got arguably a tried and tested method over the last 20 odd years of drafting a quarterback who sits behind someone, then develops, and then is the starter for years and years and years. The next guy comes in, does the exact same thing, year or two sitting there, then he's in. Again, they've done it, with Rodgers behind Favre, and then they've done it with Love behind Rodgers. And they'll do it again. So that's the dream scenario, I guess. But it's one of those ones that really this would be the year to do that if Stafford's going to go at the end of the year when his contract's up. This is the other thing. So, but then I've brought up through this, Andy. Do the team try to trade Stafford? And then it's like, well, what? You're not going to get you're not take first examples, just say Lawrence for Stafford. You're not going to get a straight swap. So what else are we going to have to send to go with Stafford? Despite the fact he's been to the Pro Bowl, he's won the Super Bowl. That should be good enough in anyone's eyes to trade, especially Jacksonville. What was the name? The guy you said that's went there now. He's going to try and kind of put him over a barrel because we always get absolute shafted when it comes to trades.
Yeah, but
as we've seen. So what else would have to go with Stafford in that scenario? Not saying I want to trade him, make that clear, but just hypothetically, what else would you have to send with him?
That'd be a difficult one to know. Would it just be a Stafford second rounder and maybe Lawrence in a fourth or something, or whether they say no, we want a first round pick as well. Which obviously, you're then looking at. Actually, we've got the better quarterback out the two at the moment, mate. So you should be kind of potentially paying us. But who knows? It's a hypothetical question, isn't it? Of but I just don't. Obviously, I was just tongue in cheek with the whole Cam Ward thing, but I don't see it happening. But it'd be interesting, like I say. Just as a bit of a thing, what how fans would feel if it did happen, if something like that did happen. Would Snead and McVeigh be, lynching squads out for him because they've done that? But so
one side there's that, oh my god, they made a splash by going there, but I don't. I think as I said at the start of this episode, we've proven over the last few years that first round pick, we can actually draft someone decent with that, or that high second round pick. We know we can get a good talent and we can draft a good talent with that. So
yeah, exactly.
Don't mortgage it away. Like
no, we've done that part now. Let's go. But anyway, so when's Brock Purdy getting paid his $70 million to make him the highest paid quarterback of the year and completely bankrupting the Niners?
Soon, I hope.
Yeah, same here.
I'm not sure if you guys saw what Puka said on a podcast the other day, but he basically said if they pay Purdy more than $50 million a year, then their Super Bowl window's well and truly closed.
Yeah, exactly. They're already having to get rid of half the team just to try and keep afloat now with the cap. So their plan of being us is backfiring slowly but surely, which is nice to see.
It's annoying for me right now because the 49ers are trying to buy my football team.
That's right, yeah.
And I'm absolutely raging about it.
Mm-hmm.
When my wife seen it, says, "Oh my god, an NFL team are going to try and buy us," and I went, "It had to be fucking them, didn't it? It had to be fucking them. 32 teams in its name." And she's like, "What?" And I said to her, and I just equated this, and I said, "My wife's a Chiefs fan." I said, "Just imagine if Celtic bought the Chiefs." And she went, "Right, no, got you, fine, no, to fuck like that." So
exactly.
I'm sitting here like that. My wife's like that. Oh, and she winding me up, says, "Oh, so you'll be buying a half and half scarf with the 49ers and Rangers on it?" And I'm like, "No, I will not. I will buy." I said to her, "Do you know what? I'll buy them just to burn half of it if I really need to." So, yeah. So I'm sitting here like, yay for my football team, but raging that it has to be fucking them because there'll be some kind of tie like that. There will be.
Oh yeah.
But then again, they kind of part own leads, and they don't really. So I'm hoping that it's just we buy them, but we're not going to push any of our Weiner pish on you. But yeah, but that's enough for me. I could rant all night about my hatred for them. Everybody in West Coast of Scotland's all delighted about this, apart from me.
Yeah, no, I can imagine, mate. I can imagine. I saw it actually, and I was like, "Oh, John's not going to be happy about that one."
I was actually speaking to a guy I know on Twitter that's a Rangers fan as well, and he's a Rams fan, and he actually said the same thing. Said, "Of 32 teams, why did it have to be them? Why could it not be anybody else?" He actually said, "Why couldn't it be the Bills? They play the same colours as us."
Yeah, that'd be nice for you. Yeah. Well,
anyways, that's I digress. Yeah, right. So enough, because I could sit here and rant all night, guys, and I don't want to do that to people because people start tuning out. But yeah, right. So we'll be back hopefully next week, if not the week after, guys, to dissect the 2025 draft. And with that, Lewis, Andy, absolute pleasure. It's good to get back on and chat with you guys.
Cheers, John.
Good to get back on, and hopefully we'll have a few more episodes moving forward.
No, we will do
sort of our normally regular scheduled shows again.
Absolutely, we will do. We definitely will do. And Lewis, thank you for all the work you put into the articles, as well as your draft analysis for us.
Yeah, they've been fantastic.
Yep, it's been great to read. If you have not seen them, folks, go on to our you'll get the link via Twitter. But you can find us LA. I think it's LA Rams UK. On Blogger, where you'll see the articles that Lewis has been writing that are getting put up as well. So, but check them out. Yeah, it's a good read. And yeah, with that, folks, we will catch us all next week, hopefully for the actual NFL draft roundup. So thanks for tuning in, folks. If you've watched along, thanks for joining us on YouTube. If you're listening, thanks a lot for listening, and we will catch you guys next time. So take care and see you soon.